Before we get into this list, I want to thank CODM for sponsoring today's video. If you guys want to check out the game, it will be linked down below. Anyway, the way that we're going to be doing this list is we're going to go ahead and start off with the most passive playstyle weapons, then transition into more versatile, and then into aggressive. And I will also include a overall grade for each weapon, so if you guys are curious on just what the best weapons are overall, you can also see that. Starting with the best passive playstyle weapons, we have the PKM and SKS. The SKS has largely been considered the best weapon in CODM for a minute, but because of its competitive bans and difficulty to use, it never really gets the meta attention that it deserves. But if your aim is ever at an all-time high, pull this thing out and 2-tap enemies anywhere and everywhere. S+. Next is the PKM. Now, this tank of weapon has terrible mobility, but is an absolute bullet hose. As long as you're already in a good position in ADS, it'll struggle to lose gunfights, but obviously getting in a good position and getting ADS is the tough part. I'm gonna give this thing an A+. Keeping with the theme of LMGs, we have largely considered the best LMG with the UL736, which can 3-shot if you're hitting chest shots up to 41 meters. It is a more aggressive option than the PKM, but it's still an LMG, not an SMG. Keep that in mind. I'm gonna give this thing an S. Next, we basically have a more aggressive version of the SKS, and that is the FMJ Magazine AS Val. This magazine converts the AS Val to a semi-automatic DMR type weapon like the SKS, but it is still different than the SKS. There's a myriad of differences we could talk about. I'll probably just flash up the stats differences so you guys can see the specifics if you want to, but basically, the AS Val version is a more aggressive, higher mobility version, whereas the SKS is more of a passive playback and, try to hit people from range type DMR. Still, the AS Val with this magazine is great. I'm gonna give it an S. Also, by the way, there's a lot of S's so far. I swear it's gonna be different, but it's a top list. There's gonna be a lot of S's. Get to the next. Next up is the Kilo 141 AR. Honestly, there's nothing I can say about this weapon that you guys don't already know. It's been in the meta forever. It's still a top weapon. Not as good as it used to be, but still top weapon. I'm gonna give it an A+. Next, we have two weapons that are nearly identical and always a topic of discussion, and that is the LK24 and the KN44. Essentially, what it boils down to with the differences between these two is the LK24 is a little easier to use, which allows it to be a little better at range, whereas the KN44 is a little bit more aggressive with better mobility and slightly harder hitting, but that's, barely. I'm just talking like bullet impact and like 1 extra damage in the first range. So again, nearly identical. I definitely recommend you use both and let me know which one you prefer. I'm gonna give both of them an S. Next up is the only weapon in this list that I'm going to include only if you have a specific skin, and that is, you guessed it, the Mythic Krig. Now with the base Krig, the iron sights are abysmal, and that's why we kind of need the Mythic, because with this weapon, if you have put on a red dot, you're essentially losing one of the Black Ops style attachments, which almost always only have benefits, so you're essentially having a 4 attachment Krig as opposed to a 5 attachment Krig. Even then, this weapon is still one of, if not the, I wouldn't say the, but one of the most versatile weapons in the entire game, and there is a reason this thing dominated the meta heavily not too long ago. I'm gonna give it an S with the Mythic, and an A+ if you don't have it. There you go, not only S's. Next is a gun that we've seen all over the place the last few seasons, mostly last season, and that is the Grau. This is likely the most versatile weapon in the entire game. Really can't go wrong with it. It's going to perform well at every single range, especially if you have a good build with it. Which, hey, speaking of which, there's a good build. Probably been showing builds this whole time. I don't know why I decided to point this one out this time, but there's the build. I'm going to give it an S. Now we're starting to get a little bit more aggressive with our weapon options as we get into the second half of the list, starting with what is considered the best gun in the game with the HVK large caliber. The HVK with the large caliber has gotten buffs and nerfs so many different times, especially with the ammo count, but currently with the 28 rounds that you get in it, it is plenty to absolutely dominate with it. With this magazine, you're getting an absolutely devastating damage profile that can 3-shot easily up to 18 meters, or can 3-shot to the chest, I believe up to 30 meters. So still 3-shotting up to 30 meters with chest shots difficult, but still insane. If you can use this gun to its full potential and be really smart with your ammo usage, again, best gun in the game, we're gonna give it an S+. Next, we have a weapon that's been getting a little bit more love in the competitive scene recently, and that is the DRH. I don't have much to say about this. It's a 3-tap AR, arguably the best 3-tap AR in the game right now, specifically with the OTM mag. I would give this thing, let's say an S-. Let's say an S-, but I have a list right here. It says S-. We're giving it an S-. Next up is kind of a wild card set of 4 different weapons. I know this kind of breaks the list. Now it's like top 22 guns or something like that. I don't know exactly, but we have 4 weapons here that could kind of be interchangeable, and that is going to be the PP19, the PDW-57, the CBR, and the Maddox. Also, quick shout out to the Stats on Duty guys that helped me make this list and a lot of these gunsmiths, especially Lock and Load. Kind of a strange set of weapons here, but essentially the reason that I'm putting these 4 is because with the PP19, for example, this gun it doesn't have great time to kill, but it has extremely good mobility, especially strafe speed, so you can put on dead silence and just walk around corners and absolutely obliterate people. I got stuck on Japanese servers for a little bit, somehow, I don't know exactly how that happened, but that's literally all everybody was doing, and it was really annoying, but I kind of got a taste of how good the PP19 can be in that kind of playstyle. Definitely try it, super easy to use, great gun. But again, it doesn't kill as fast as guns such as the CBR4 or the PDW. Now, both of these weapons are kind of similar-ish, and a lot of people will say the PDW is better, and on paper, it is better than the CBR4, but for some reason, I find it way easier to use the CBR4, maybe just because I practice it way more, and also the iron sights are just kind of better on it. You kind of have to use a red dot on the PDW unless you have a great blueprint, but again, on paper, the PDW is a better weapon. And also the Maddox. This is one that honestly, I just wanted to put in this list in some capacity because I think it's one of, if not the most underrated guns to use in the game, specifically with the Echo Fire mod. It makes it a very, very interesting type weapon that can absolutely destroy if you know how to use it. And lucky for you, I made a video on how to use it that I will link down below. And also this season, it did get a buff to its general, I believe its first damage range, and also a buff to its Echo Fire, I believe now giving you more strafe speed when you put it on. Still a very wildcard type weapon, but I wanted to include it. So definitely let me know what one you prefer of those 4, but here is my individual grade. Now for our final 6 weapons, we're going to be getting into the more ultra-aggressive playstyle, starting with the PPSH, which did get a buff this season, taking the stomach multiplier from 1.1 to 1.2, which really only matters from about 10 to 60 meters and 23 meters and beyond. It can affect all ranges kind of, but that's where it will most matter. And with these buffs, the PPSH is now a great aggressive option. I wouldn't say it's one of the best, but still a great fun one to use with a big magazine. Just make sure you avoid hitting leg shots with this thing, as that will really hurt your time to kill, but overall, I'm gonna give this thing a S-. And like the PPSH, another aggressive SMG that you have to aim high with, we have the Switchblade, which the Switchblade is one of those very kind of unreliable SMGs where the time to kill could go from like a 3-shot to a 5-shot depending on where you're hitting on the body, so you gotta make sure you aim high with this thing. Luckily, pretty easy to control the recoil, and the BSA is decent, so overall, I would give this thing a S. Next, we have the infamous QQ9, otherwise known as the MP5. This thing has been around forever. It's one of those very reliable SMGs that you can pull out, just really depending on how your aim is, it doesn't matter, you can pull it out. Also has the 10mm mag that you can kind of flex between, whether you want more of an AR type SMG or a more aggressive SMG. So it's just a very well-rounded SMG with a lot of different ways that you can play it. I'm gonna give this thing a A+. Now, with a fairly new addition to the list, we have the CX9, which got a myriad of buffs, I believe, last season, maybe 2 seasons ago. I forget which one, last season. But basically, the buffs allow it to be a more competitive, ultra-aggressive SMG. And when I say ultra-aggressive, I do mean that you have to play this thing very, very aggressive to get the most value out of it, because it does have bullet velocity, so it's going to fall off super hard at range, plus all of the other damage stats on it. It's just, you got to play it aggressive. But when you do that, again, it'll absolutely fry in lobbies. I'm going to give this thing a little bit of a lower grade than some of the other SMGs, but still, it's great. I'm gonna give it a A+. Now for the most aggressive fully automatic weapon inside of CODM, we have the Fennec. This thing absolutely fries. We saw it all throughout the World Championship. Granted, that was on a different patch, but still stands. This gun is extremely fast firing, has great hip fire capabilities. It doesn't have bullet velocity, so the range capabilities are actually better than a lot of the other SMGs if you can control the ridiculous vertical recoil. But again, close range, it's an absolute bullet hose. You can hip fire, you can ADS, you can really do whatever you want when you're, face to face with someone. It is when you start to get a little bit, more distance between you and your target that you have to really focus ADS and control the recoil, and it gets a little bit more difficult, but with its time to kill, it's worth it. I would say the Fennec is deserving of, I believe, our second, maybe third S+. Then finally, we have the R90 shotgun. This thing's a shotgun. It has 2 shots, so, it's not super punishing when you miss, because you have a second follow-up shot that can still one-shot. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. Great, I'm gonna give it an A+. But yeah, that's it. That is the top 20 weapons for every playstyle in CODM. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you to CODM for sponsoring today's video. When this goes out, I might be streaming with the brand new Tundra, which, by the way, I didn't mention snipers because want to do a separate video on those, especially with the Tundra coming out soon. But right now, I might be streaming playing with it, so check that out. Anyway, if you enjoyed, peace.